It is 6 o'clock. We are the POP, the practice of pastry. You are the POPers. This is a baking club where we get together once a week and I lecture and demonstrate a new recipe every week. And this week we're doing a key lime pie, and I have never done a key lime pie. I've done all of the components, so I did a little bit of research, and I think, you all know how much I like Rose Levy, but that just kind of goes to, I've never used the recipe before, but that's how much I trust her to actually know that it works just because I trust her, and then to use her book when I've never demonstrated this before, if that gives you any indication. So we are using the recipe out of the Pie and Pastry Bible by Rose Levy Berenbaum. And I don't know where to put everything. And if you want the recipes, because we're doing 3 different things, we are doing a graham cracker crust, an Italian meringue, and the filling, the lime filling, and the Italian meringue is going in the lime filling. So I could do 2 hours on just meringues, but we're gonna do those 3 concepts in this one, and we're gonna bake it. And then I have a pie that I made yesterday, and it was really good. So I can recommend this recipe. Now this is not the no-bake kind. This is a bake it, and I'm gonna explain why, and we're gonna go through all the ingredient functions of every ingredient in every recipe. And if you wanna follow along, I made graham crackers from scratch, and you don't have to do that. With this recipe, you can do any part of this recipe. You can go buy part of it. You can buy a graham cracker crust. Ooh, it smells good. You can buy graham crackers and then grind them up, but these are homemade, and I shared the recipe. It's on my link tree. Look how thick. And these I baked soft. I baked them soft because I'm going to turn them into a crust, and then the crust is going to get baked. So if you bake them dark and then you try to turn them into a crust, you might over bake the crust. So that's number 1. This recipe, the graham cracker crust, if you want to make it, is here. The other recipes we're going to be using are an Italian meringue, and this is the filling. And these are on my link tree, and these are in grams, and this is the center column. This is our standard recipe, so you can use this recipe to go up and down, but we're using 100% recipe, and these ingredients are put together so that when you read the recipe, it's easy to follow along. And I'm gonna use this as I verify my scalings and go through my recipe. Because eventually, if I know the method, I just get rid of the recipe and I've got my ingredients and I'm good to go. So these are on my link tree. And then, this is very, very useful. On my Substack, I make notes. And these notes are specific to this recipe. I don't mean Italian meringue for any use. I don't mean graham crackers for any use. I mean for the key lime pie. All of this information, you can go and check it out at my Substack, The Practice of Pastry. And in here you will get, what is, the quintessential definition of a key lime pie. What's our desired outcome? What are the components, ingredient function, and then the synergy? So it's all in here. So we have recipes on Linktree and recipe information and notes on my Substack. So that's where you can get all the information. And what I am going to do is get started right away. And while I'm talking about the key lime pie, I will be weaving in how all of these ingredients work together, how the pie is going to function in terms of how you can stage it out, where you can store it, how to serve it, all that kind of stuff. My graham cracker crust recipe, by the way, I wrote out by hand last year when I was at the Milkweed Inn. So I don't even know who to reference it from, but I also go through and copy parts of the book. So I use this from the Cake Bible. So when we're looking at a key lime pie, it's something that was invented, believe it or not, in the late 1800s in Florida because they had a lot of key limes. I guess in 2006 it was named like the state pie, but I have had lime pie and lemon meringue pies and things like that. But it is a great summer pie, and they do make a no-bake style, but we're going to bake it, and I'm going to show you how because we want it to be food safe and we want a certain flavor, and we're using fresh limes and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start with a fit check, and we are going to, let me move some things. We're going to do a fit check, wash your hands, clean my area, turn some lights on, move some things out of the way. We have a lot to do. All right, do some cooking. So this is going to be really interesting because it's a very approachable recipe, but it's 3 components. And the components can all be made separately. I made those graham crackers a couple days ago, and you can actually make Italian meringue way in advance, and you can turn it into a ton of things. it's a component. So that's really nice. All right, so the fit check basically is I'm ready to go because I'm already sweating. I like to be safe in the kitchen, no nail polish, short nails, no jewelry, minimal makeup, and I wear clothes that don't get caught in the equipment. And every time I work, I use a fresh, clean, inexpensive, meaning like a $5 apron, or one that I used to use maybe for a school or maybe has a logo on it, that I will use forever. And I keep them clean because I only use them once, and I wash them and make sure that they don't get dingy or stained. So that's it. Safety first, and then I've got clogs on. So I'm gonna clean the countertop and wash my hands. I'm gonna wash my hands. I've already wiped the countertop, and I'm gonna go ahead and use a bleach wipe to sanitize. Let me get a paper towel. A key lime pie is often made with eggs, egg yolks, and egg whites. And if you do anything that's uncooked, you risk salmonella or maybe making somebody sick. This is really a big concern when you're dealing with certain populations. So if you have really, really young children, elderly, or people who are immune compromised, you need to be very, very careful. We're gonna start with the graham crackers. I'm gonna show you all about the graham cracker. These are my ingredients. I'm gonna grind them up. This is how I scale things out. 170 grams of graham crackers, homemade. You can use any kind of cookie or graham cracker from the store. However, Rose Levy Berenbaum does a really good job of explaining how they all have different amounts of sugar and fat. So you need to pay attention to that, because when we're adding things like sugar or sucrose and melted butter, we have to take into consideration what lives inside our cookie. So if the cookie is really dry, if it has spices in it, you might not need to add anything. I've already added cinnamon to my graham cracker, so I'm not going to add it. But these are the considerations you need to take. And if you're going to add nuts so that you have like a nut crust, you're going to have to take other considerations. So I don't have those numbers, but if you want to look it up, they are in the Pie and Pastry Bible by Rose Levy. So then these are my other ingredients for the next part of the recipe, and I'm going to put these aside because I don't need them. Let me plug this in over here. This is my old food processor, and it's actually broken. I don't really know why they make these things with plastic components, because they don't last forever, and I really don't like that. So the deal is, this is dangerous. I don't know if you know this, but these are super sharp. I've seen people cut themselves. But in the back of this is a thing that I turn on, and I use an IKEA hex tool. So we're going to grind these up, we're going to pulse these up, and I'm going to melt the butter. Not all the way, we don't want it screaming hot, and even if there are just little pieces in there, that's okay. We're going to melt it just so it's liquidy. I'm going to put it in the microwave. 30 seconds. All right, so then we have our sucrose. I have new colored tape, I'm using white. Sucrose and our graham cracker. Perfect. And I put all of my labels right here on the side so I don't lose track. So I'm going to put the graham crackers in here, and I want to show you what this looks like. These are the cutest. Graham crackers are one of the easiest things to make, and I just use a pie crimper to do like a mark, and they're on a video I just posted on TikTok that you can go see. So these are really nice and soft. I'm going to put this here. Let me check on my butter. So that's after 30 seconds, and you can see there's solids in there, but that's okay. I'm just going to leave that. That's good. That's perfect. I'm going to take this off, leave the lid on. There we go. Okay, here we go. This is going to be really loud, so cover your ears. I'm going to pulse. Make sure there are no chunks. Even if there are, they'll be so soft I can break them up. All right, there we go. That's all we need the food processor for. And I'm not going to rescale these because I know that's correct. Now, Rose Levy has some notes in her recipe where packaging has changed. So she's made note of those inconsistencies. I chose to go with the original amount. So this is 170 grams, but there are different numbers you can go by. Sometimes people make these graham cracker crusts by feel. They use their hands and they decide what they like. I'm not going to do that because I already made it yesterday. I made it yesterday, and I like the amount, and I know what size pan it's going to fit in. So this is a metal pan. It is from Crown Cookware, and I think it's aluminum. And it's not super deep. I'm going to have more filling than I need, actually, but I know the amount of crust that I have is the right thickness and the right amount. And I'm going to press this into here, and I'm not going to have overlap. So I'm not going to grease the pan. But I like metal because I want this crust to get some heat and to cook a little bit. I don't want it raw, and I don't want to use, even though this is beautiful, this is a Pyrex. You can use a Pyrex, you can use ceramic, you can use a lot of things, but this is going to insulate, meaning the heat's going to go through this very easily and it's going to go through this very slowly. So if you do something like this, you might want to parbake it. I'm going to parbake mine just for a moment, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. But the reason you parbake is to get a pie going, especially because the bottom never quite bakes enough. And so if you were to do glass, you might want to parbake it. However, we are going to be using the broiler at the end once we get the Italian meringue topping on here. And you don't want to do that with glass. You could crack it. So if you don't want to use an Italian meringue, you could bake this and then top it with a chantilly cream. So I just want to show you that you can use other pies. This is much bigger. So you are going to have to look up the amounts for a larger pie pan. Every recipe is going to give you a different amount. So it's kind of up to you to decide what size pan, and that is how deep and how big. So this is kind of a little bit smaller, and that way I'm going to have a little bit of leftover filling. So this is how easy this is. This of my graham cracker crumb is going into this bowl. There we go. And you can tell how super fine the grain is. Look at that. I might run into a lump here and there. But I'm going to put gloves on, and I'm going to use a spatula. So I'll put the sugar in first. This is the sucrose. And let me get my gloves. I like to use gloves when I do things like granola and anything that I need to feel. I need to feel that I don't have dry chunks, because you need to be able to imagine that this crust is going in here. And if it has dry bits, those aren't going to cook right. And when you cut into it, you're not going to have a cohesiveness. So I talk a lot about things being cohesive and emulsification and all of these things. And all we're talking about is making sure that at every single step along the way, you are getting everything mixed as well as possible. So this is just my graham crackers I made from scratch. They're ground up with sucrose. And we are making a key lime pie crust. Right, so I'm going to take this butter, and it's just unsalted butter. Unsalted is the only kind that I use in my bake shop. It makes confusion less likely to happen. And I don't know how much salt they put in different manufacturers' butter, so I just stick with the one unsalted, and then I am in control of how much salt I add. And this is nice as I work my recipes up and down. All right, I just want to make sure this is getting going, and I'm going to take my hands and just dig in. And get in there like this and rub it. And in this case, here's a chunk. So I can break that up. It's very soft. And so I'm going to move quickly, but I want to make sure that it's hydrated. And I go slowly with everything. That's why I like to add things in thirds. I like to do one step at a time. I don't ever dump everything into a bowl at one time, ever. It's best to take control of each step so that you do it really well, because in baking, if you have one bad step and you go to the next one, the rest is built on bad. So every step is an opportunity to build an incredible product, and it's also, unfortunately, an opportunity to build a bad product, to build something that you wish you could go back. And oftentimes that is in the form of a lump or something like that. All right, so I'm gonna make sure this is all moist. And if you find that this is too wet, you can adjust the butter amount. I liked it, and I'm not gonna press as hard into the pan as I did on my first pie from yesterday. All right, I think we're good. And you can do this without gloves. I just don't like getting my hands all yucky. Okay, but do you see how I pre-scaled everything? And now it's like a lot of that worry is just not here, because I know that everything is where I need it, and I don't have to keep going back and picking up the recipe. All I need to know is the method. And this could not be any simpler. Now I did notice some of the pre-made crusts that were in the baking aisle, and they were broken. So if you're going to buy one, make sure you get a good one. What a tough product to sell and to ship around the world. I mean, it must really take a lot of packaging to keep it from breaking. All right, I don't think I have any large chunks. I am going to show you what this looks like. What you're looking for is when you squeeze it, it really holds together. Do you see that? Although we don't want to compress it. So we're not going to spray the pan, okay? If you want it to go up around the edge, you might put a little bit of grease around the edge so that when you go to take it out, it comes out, but we are not putting it on the edge. I'm going to stop at the edge. So I always aim for the center. I work from the middle out. Okay. I'm going to take my hands and just start pressing down in the center and working my way around to the edge. And all the while you're trying to create evenness. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to use something to even out the bottom, but if you start from the center and move out, your fingers are going to tell you a lot about thickness and where stuff is. All right. So then I go around and I start pushing it into the corners. There's no right or wrong way. You can make huge batches of graham cracker crust and freeze them in advance. This is also great if you have a cake collar or a sheet pan, because you can use a little rolling pin to get everything even. You can make this cheesecake crust out of this. You can have it ready and waiting. It's a very good type of crust to scale up and down very easily. So you see how I'm using one hand to stop the top? And I have to do a lot of imagining. I have to imagine that not only am I pressing evenly, but that I have the same amount all the way around. So I want the edges to be the same thickness. I want it all to be compressed the same way. I don't want some areas that aren't compressed so that when I go to cut the pie later, it falls apart. We want this to be baked so that it's sturdy, so that when we lift up the pie, it can hold the weight of the filling, but also it's getting a wet filling in it. So that's why I'm going to bake it just a little bit. And there's a lot of sugar in this recipe in general. So with this humidity, that becomes kind of a problem. Plus my meringue did sweat in the refrigerator. All right, so that is that. And then I'm going to take this little cup, just the bottom. That's what it looks like. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to fix the edge a little bit more, but I'm going to take this cup and just make sure. And I don't want to press it down so much that the whole thing is compressed. We want this to stay light, and we want our fork to be able to go through it easily. So I'm really thinking about this area. I want that area to be filled in. And then I can go back and work on the corner. So what I'm going to do now is go through and work on this corner like that and pinch it where I want it to go, because you're always in charge of where this stuff lands. If it's a little thin in one spot, I mean, that's not a big deal. You will get better the more you make these and the more you practice. And also, not only can you do this larger, but what's great about this is, I can tell it's thicker on this side. What's great about graham cracker crust is you can also do little itty bitty things. So you can put them just on the bottom of pans. So now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to make sure that it's straight and flat. I'm going to use an offset spatula, one of my favorite tools. This just gets it a little straighter. Now I'm going to put this in the refrigerator for 15 minutes, and I'm going to pop in the oven for 5 minutes. But then it's very important that we then let it cool. You never want to put a cold filling into a warm shell. This is going in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. Let me do the timer here. And then it's going to go in the oven for 5 minutes. So now that I have a timer on that, I don't have to worry about it. So we're going to move to stage number 2, which is, I think I'll do the Italian meringue. So we're going to plug in, this is my IKEA induction burner. In an induction burner, you need to have induction ready pans, and that means that they hold a magnet. So I'm going to plug this induction burner into this outlet because they take a lot of electricity, and this is a dedicated outlet. And then I'm going to get my mixer. An Italian meringue is really special because it's 2 things that you have to do at one time. You have to take eggs, just egg whites with a little cream of tartar, which is an acid, which irritates the proteins in the egg whites and helps them, you know, get stronger and grab onto each other, while bringing sugar and water up to temperature. And then when this is at the right, when the egg whites are at the right aeration, egg foam, you pour the hot sugar over it. The reason we're doing an Italian meringue is because it's the most stable. And people talk a lot about something being stable. A meringue is stable, or an emulsion is stable. And basically what that means is you've locked in the moisture. So for an Italian meringue, when you cook that water and sugar really high, you cooked off more of the water. So when you pour it over the egg, which has, egg white has a lot of water in it, you'll see it steam. So not only does the hot sugar cook the proteins in the egg whites, but it also cooks off some of the moisture, which makes it so that when you just leave the meringue on your countertop, it doesn't leach water. When you make a simple meringue, which is just egg white and sugar in your bowl, and you leave it for 5 minutes, and you come back and there's water that's on the bottom of the bowl floating around, that's unstable. So stability means that you're locking in the moisture. You're reducing the moisture and locking it together so that the moisture can't get out. That's a strong emulsion. So that's what we're going to do with our Italian meringue. And the reason that I mention all this is because if we were to do a macaron, I would insist that we do an Italian meringue, because that's going to give you the best meringue, most stable shell, and it'll stand up to adding all of the TPT and the other ingredients into it. That's what gives you a really lovely, beautiful shell. Okay, so I need tools. Let me get my tools. I need my pan. It's not very big because this is a small recipe. This is specifically for the Italian meringue, which is a component to the overall dessert. Part of it is going to be folded into the filling, and the other part is going on top. If you don't want to use Italian meringue, you can use a simple meringue, but you're going to have to look for the directions in the book. So this is a small pot. It's induction ready. It holds a magnet. It's right here. And then I have this here because it's stable. If you use a deli cup, it might tip over. I want to keep my thermometer, which is a digital thermometer, in here so I can leave it and I can put this in the bowl to get the right temperature. Now, these digital thermometers, and this is an Atkins, these are expensive, this is a professional quality. But if you get a less expensive one, I think they're around $60 and they come in cute colors. Chef Alarm has one that works great. And they usually have this in student toolkits. I highly recommend. I have one over there, but I do like this one. It's very simple. But this is like a thermocoupler, right? This does not mean when we put it on the bottom of the pan that it's taking the temperature of the bottom of the pan. It's taking the temperature up here where that bump is. And that is what will be catching the temperature of the sugar and the water. And I'm going to work in Celsius. It's very humid, so you can make an Italian meringue if you go and take this to 118 Celsius, but because of the humidity, which is naturally occurring moisture in the air, I'm going to cook this to around 124 Celsius. And if you think about what is that doing, it's removing more water. It's cooking it more. It's the difference between a soft candy that has more water in it and a hard one that cracks, has more water cooked out of it. So the chewier a candy is, and candy is sugar and water and flavoring, the more water it has in it. So we want to take out just the right amount according to the weather that is in my neighborhood today. In the winter time, I might only take this to 118, but today we're going to take it to 124. So I'm going to put this over here. This is not a hard thing to master. What you will know is it is an advanced pastry technique, and not because you can't do it, but you really can burn yourself very badly. And you can do it improperly. So we want to make sure that you're getting all the points that are important, because once we make this, it is so shelf stable that you can just put it on the countertop. People make this at the beginning of their weekend at a restaurant and it just sits on the countertop. You can smear it onto a plate and torch it for a s'mores dessert. You can use it as a filling for a cake, or you can add butter to it and make Italian buttercream. Italian meringue is one of the most versatile components, and we're going to make a very small batch of it right now. It's very important that your egg whites are room temperature. Egg whites have proteins in them. Our proteins in our muscles are similar to the proteins in egg whites, and that means they stretch more easily when they are warm. We have the egg whites at room temperature, and then I'm going to add a pinch of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar, I think, is a byproduct of the winemaking industry. It's in the barrels, and they might manufacture it differently nowadays, but it's an acid. If you have a cut and you put your fingers in here and get any cream of tartar on your cut, it'll burn worse than lemon juice, if that gives you any idea. When you take an acid, and add it to a protein like egg or to a dairy protein, it coagulates. Just like when you squeeze lemon into tea that has cream, you get the chunks on it. That's coagulation. That's the same thing that's going to happen to this. We need these proteins. This isn't egg foam. And egg foam is when the proteins, they unravel. They start out all like, you know, kind of disconnected, and they unravel and then they begin to connect. And the water in the egg white and the sugar that we're going to add, which is right here, we're going to cook the water and the sugar. When we add this to this, that sugar syrup creates what we know as a meringue. So this helps get those structures started, which is great. So we're going to put the egg white in here. And just to get things going, you want to turn the mixer on low and just kind of start to break them up. I call it pooping, but you know when you pour egg whites, they all grab together? That's the proteins. They're all like stuck and connected and they're disorganized. So we need to break them up a little bit. As you start to break them up, you will see bubbles, foam. Egg foam is nothing more than a fancy way of saying eggs that have had air whipped into them and sometimes sugar. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it a pinch of cream of tartar. And I don't have a cut because if I did, I would know. I'd be screaming. And when you make any kind of sugar in a pan, you want to add the water first. So these are my scalings, only 100 grams of sucrose and 30 grams of water. This is a very small batch. And so this is my pinch cream of tartar. So it was on a lid, even though I had a whole ingredient. I often do this with citrus as well. That way I don't forget it. Because my lids are my scaling direction. It's what I use. So I'm going to put the water into the pot first. I'm going to get a heat-resistant spatula. This is by Thermal Works, which is the same one who makes my Chef Alarm. What we need to do is get this to a medium peak the same time that our sugar comes to heat. It's going to be about 124 degrees Celsius. So when you turn on your burner, you need to get everything timed well. Okay, so I'm going to turn it down. The water is not hot, and I'm going to aim for the center. And what I'm looking for is to hydrate the sugars, and I don't want to slosh them around. So let me show you what's happening with our egg foam. And again, the reason we add the water first is so we don't get hot spots with the sugar. See how it's foamy? All right, so it's starting to break apart, but it's by no means a meringue yet. It's not that together. And I never make egg foams higher than medium anyway, so we're going to take our time. Now, if this starts to come up the temp really, really fast, then I'll increase the speed on here, but I want to keep track of it. So you do not want to push sugar around. At this stage of the game, sugar is made out of crystals, and like crystals like to grow and grab onto each other. So if you start to slosh it around, and there are granules of sugar on the edges, they might start to connect and form a glob. So what I do is I tap, and I know you can't see in here, but when you tap just the middle, you're allowing the water to hydrate the sucrose, and then when I do move my spatula, I do it outside the pan inward. And what I am looking for is to, at a lower temperature, melt the sugar particles. And then once I can confirm that there's no grit on the bottom of my pan, I pull the spatula, and then I don't touch it anymore. I don't stir it anymore, and I add the thermometer. Okay, so if it's boiling and I can still feel and see granules of sugar, I'm going to turn down the temperature and let them dissolve. If you continue to move forward with sugar crystals that are undissolved, the graininess, even though it gets to a high temp, the graininess will make its way in your meringue, and you don't want a grainy meringue. And you don't want to slosh this toward the edges, and if you're having any issues, I'm pushing down and pulling outside in and not moving it around much. I'm really just feeling and looking to see if my granules are melted. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit more. It's really getting hot, and if you're concerned, just pull it off the heat. But do not slosh it around. And this is such a small amount, it's going to go pretty quickly. Alright, so this is clear. I'm going to put it back on the heat, and I don't need this anymore. Let's keep this on. Sometimes these have protectives. It's on 210, alright. So as you can see, I've got a simple egg foam here. You can see, but it's not strong yet, and we need it to be stronger. If I just left this here, the water inside the egg would just separate. So I'm going to keep it. You can hear it. It's not going fast, but I need to get the thermometer in here to make sure that it's at the right temp. So right now, Celsius, and I know I can't do the Fahrenheit conversion, and for some reason I'm like bilingual. I can do this by Celsius, but not the oven, so it's like bizarre. So we're at 102, and it's coming up very quickly. So I can either, if I'm nervous, turn this down, but I'm keeping an eye on this. And you will see people get very nervous when they do this. And all you can say is, other than undercooking this, or overcooking it, or under-whipping, or over-whipping, just don't get hurt. That's the number one goal, is to not hurt yourself. And if you need to at any point, you just pull things off the heat. You are in control. Don't ever get too worried that things are going to get out of hand. All right. So in the video, that's plenty for me. That's plenty strength for me. And if you see in my video from today, now I'm going to turn it on low. That's just going to hold it. The video from today, the meringue was grainy, and I swear to you, I normally do these giant batches, and you can certainly do giant batches and then just scale out what you need, but I was doing something else. All right, I'm going to turn this off. I'm not going to pull the pie out of the refrigerator because I don't want to get the middle things being in the oven. All right, so we were at 110 degrees Celsius. So in the video, I overdid the whipping because I had this internal clock. This thing is normally full, right? And I turned my back to do some dishes, and it went over. So this is something that you need to babysit. You want this to be creamy, and you want your meringue to not be gritty at all. Because if it is, it means it's broken. And that's what you see in the video, which is a little embarrassing, but I'm telling you, if you go watch the video, you will notice it. And the reason we don't want that is because we want a creamy meringue, where it's not all the way to its limit, because when we put it into our filling, and when we cook it, we want it to expand a little bit, but it's not going to if I already take it all the way. So I want to take it just under, don't break it, and then have it be smooth and glossy and lovely. But that is what happened, and the evidence is on my video. Alright, so we're at, right now, this is 124 degrees, so I'm going to take this off. And I'm going to take this off the heat and let the bubbles dissipate just a little. And this is where a little bit of practice comes in. You're going to want to pour this between the whip and the bowl edge, down the side of the bowl edge, with this at a relatively good speed to keep things moving. So here we go. The heat is going to help get it off the edge of the bowl. And again, this is such a small recipe, it is a little finicky. If you end up with a glob of sugar on the bottom, you either don't have it hot enough or you poured the sugar onto the whip. But there's some left in here. I'm going to leave this. And this is too hot to even go into my dish thing, because it's plastic. So I'm going to put it over to the side where it's safe. And now I'm done with the induction burner. And I'm going to show you what's going on. It's very hot. And normally you want to do this until this is hot that you can touch it, okay? But this is what it looks like. It's pretty smooth. It's not broken like in the video. I'm going to go just a little bit longer. All right, and then I'm going to put the pie in the oven for 5 minutes. You want it to be cool enough to touch, and it really is borderline. So I'm going to get the pie from the fridge. This is the crust I did earlier. It's refrigerated just enough to cool it down, and it's going in the oven for just 5 minutes. Okay? That way we can get the proteins in the graham crackers, the sugars, and the butter proteins to start to cook. so that when we add the filling and we bake it, they're sort of ahead and dried out just a tiny bit. Okay, so this is where it feels good. So this is a small amount of Italian meringue. You're usually making like a gigantic batch. So I'm just going to put this off to the side and get rid of this machine because we don't need it anymore. Get rid of a couple things. I like a timer because it tells me something is in the oven, not that it's done. Timer is the best way for me to know what's going on in my kitchen without losing track. But it does not tell me when things are ready. It just tells me that something's in the oven. All right, so here we go to the next thing. Okay, so these are my ingredients, and this is for the filling. When the pie crust comes out, I am going to let it sit and let it cool down. If I need to, I'll put it in the refrigerator for just a minute because we are in a hurry here. For this, I have the filling. And in the filling, if you're looking for the recipe, it is on my link tree. And the way you read this is the standard recipe. Is always whatever recipe you're using. Some recipes are written for a 20 quart, some begin as a 5 quart mix. This is a rose leafy Berenbaum amount, and then I did 100%. If I wanted to, I could double, triple, quadruple the middle. But this is the one I'm working from, so if you see this, these are the ingredients. I'm gonna double check. 74 grams of yolk. I separate my egg yolks and my egg whites, and I scale them separately. And then I have 400 grams of sweetened condensed milk. That's a lot. And then I'm going to use the key lime filling. This is the Italian meringue. I didn't like the actual measurement she called for. I wish it had been in grams because you can scale Italian meringue, no problem. But it's a scant 2 cups, so we're gonna do that. And I guesstimated at 250 grams, but that's wrong. I know it's more like 103. But I have this as a reminder, that's gonna go there. And then I'm going to be doing the zest of a lime, a whole lime, and it's on a deli cup. That is how I don't forget things. So this is my physical manifestation of the recipe. I have it in the formulator, I have it in the deli cups, on the lids, and it's always ready for me. And I don't lose track. So I don't have the lime juice ready. I like it to be fresh. This is from yesterday and it was in the refrigerator, but I did an exam once and I had to practice 9 times for this 4-hour exam. And I made a lemon cream with agar, and whenever I scaled the lemon juice ahead any more than that morning, it just didn't have the acidic oomph. And we need that acidic reaction to help thicken our eggs a little bit because the oven is going to do the rest of the work. So I'm going to go ahead and use this from yesterday, but I am going to just let you know that that's an option. And I am not using key limes because I did not have them at the store. I personally don't love them. I do think they're a little more bitter, and I don't use the kind that's in the freezer or anything that can be a little chemical tasting or a little metallic. So I use fresh, and I need to make a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is 2 things. 1, I'm going to give myself 2 cups of the meringue. This is just, for me, not accurate enough. I don't enjoy it. And the thing is what ends up happening is this goes into the filling, and what's left goes on the pie, but quite frankly, if I could make the meringue filling on the top twice as high, I would. So you can get any Italian meringue recipe and make twice as much, and then you can go to town on a really decorative top. But I'm gonna go ahead, look at how firm this is, okay? This is just cooked egg white and sugar with egg whites whipped with a little cream of tartar, and then the sugar is cooked really hot. I cooked mine to 124 Celsius, just like the hard crack stage if you're looking at Fahrenheit. So this is going off to the side for my filling, and this will be for the top for later. Okay, let me pull out my crust. You can see it shrunk just a little bit off the sides, but it's hot. I'm gonna put it under here to cool. And I'm going to check it before I use it. I do not want to put this filling into a hot crust. I am going to use my old Hamilton Beach juicer. I got this 32 years ago, and I was at a flea market once and I found a small, really cool one, inexpensive, professional one that was really dirty. And my girlfriend bought it because I told her I would take it home and clean it, and I cleaned it up, and that thing's a workhorse. So what I'm going to do is put this in here instead of that little cup, because then this is sort of more of a bottomless. So I'm going to have to scale it, And this is my amount, 188 grams. So it's gonna go on there on my scale. I am going to be zesting lime. I'm going to squeeze these limes. I'm gonna estimate that I need 4, and then we'll see. And if I have leftover, I'll put it in my drink. All right, here we go. These make, when a recipe says, you know, 1 lemon or the juice of 1 lemon, like if you're squeezing it one of those hand squeezers, this gives you so much more juice than a hand squeezer, so that it almost makes those amounts wrong, because you're not gonna have the same amount of juice coming out of this lime as you did if I hand squeezed it or reamed it. Oh, it smells so good. So I was a little concerned doing this recipe and thinking, oh, well, what if people's expectations are more of like the no-bake kind? And I thought, well, we're gonna do this because you can always do a no-bake if you want. And I have never been intrigued to do the no-bake because for obvious reasons, I like to bake. So this I put under here to catch any of the drips, and I need to do 188 grams. Okay, perfect. So I have this much left. This really is too much for a drink, but we'll go ahead and do it. Sometimes I get a little crazy on the acidic stuff. All right, compost dish. And I have more limes, so what I can do with the lime juice is squeeze it all and freeze it if I want to. You could put it into ice cube trays. That's a great way of doing it. But I still need one of these limes to do zest. So I will clean these later. The reason my stuff lasts forever is because I clean it really well. So before I put everything away for the night, I will give it a deep clean. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is kind of where it gets fun and where it becomes easy. Let me put my knife away. It's such a good knife. I don't want it to get rusty or anything. Boom, boom. So this is fun. Okay, so I need the meringue. I need the zest of 1 lime. Boom. And this is the meringue filling. So I take this off, believe it or not, and I just put it here as a reminder, okay? All right, so I have the yolk. And the recipe says to start with the yolk. Now, you don't have to temper anything, but you don't want to start this way in advance. I'm gonna go put the crust into the fridge because we are going to be putting it in here pretty soon. Once you add an acid to something, it can start to pre-coagulate and make it go weird. So once you add an acid to something like a yolk or an egg white or something like that, you need to kind of keep it moving. So I'm going to go ahead and put the yolk in here first. And I'm actually going to use a whisk. Trick that I have when I'm only myself, no, I don't have anyone to hold my bowls, I take a damp towel and I make a circle out of it. This holds my bowl so that I can work one-handed. So I'm going to start with the sweetened condensed milk. I am not as familiar with sweetened condensed milk as you would think I should be. And I've always wanted to do everything the long, slow way. So like I've never made fudge from scratch. And people have been like, oh, I have the best recipe with sweetened condensed milk. Well, I'm not interested in that because I want to do the process. And when you use this, what it is a condensed, meaning they've removed water and added a bunch of sugar and then cooked it down till it gets caramely and brown, right? And I know you can continue to cook it and do stuff with it, but they've done a lot of the work for you. So that's why when I make a caramel sauce and I use real cream, I have way more water to cook out and it takes an hour versus using something like this where a lot of the work is done for me. So in here's dairy, it's milk and sugar, that's it. And then I tried 2 different brands and one was much thicker than the other and one was darker. So it is interesting, they're not all exactly alike. When you make caramels, for instance, you can use fresh dairy, or which has a lot of water, or you can use evaporated milk, which has no sugar but less water, or this, which has less water and more sugar. So it's amazing. All right, so remember I said you don't want to add the acid to the egg. So we're going to add this, and that is going to dilute the egg. So when we add the acid, it doesn't shock the eggs and cause a bunch of little curdled, yucky parts, right? So you see, I'm going to pour this in, and I'm going to whisk it in. And there's nothing I can do to hurt this, really. Moving slowly and keeping it, you know, from getting chunky, I suppose. I had an old can that I did not use because when I opened it at the bottom, all the sugar was at the bottom and it was hard. So I didn't want to use that. All right, so we're gonna get as much out of here as we can. And this stuff is wonderful. I mean, it's addictive. I can see putting it in just about anything. I ate many spoonfuls. Very good. All right, so you want to kind of stay in the center and build a core, just like you do with the ganache. Make sure it's smooth before we add anything else. When I use a whisk, I'm keeping this on the bottom. See how smooth? This stays on the bottom. I'm not adding air. We don't want to add air. So now I want to add the lime juice slowly. If you add it all at once, you might get chunks and thick spots. So I'm going to stop, make sure this is moving around, because remember, we have proteins and things in the sweetened condensed milk and the egg. So we want to give them a chance to get to know each other. So if you skip going slow, you might end up with chunks and it won't be emulsified. It kind of breaks up a little bit. Get it mixed in. And I just go slow. There's no reason to go fast on anything. When you're baking, look at how many ingredients we're using and how much time and care we are taking. So why rush any of the steps? All right, so this is nice and smooth and it's much looser than it was. Much looser. Okay. Put this here. And now I'm going to do my zest. And if you remember how I say, don't use your dominant hand in this. You want your non-dominant hand. So I'm going to be using this to control how deep I go. Because just like when I do my lemon zest, I only want to get the very top. This lime is still going to look green pretty much when I get done. And I'm just going to quickly go over it and get the whole thing. Now the recipe calls for 3 grams. I don't weigh it out and I absolutely don't recommend you scale it into a container because what's on here, that's the zest. It's where the smell and the flavor is. If you go underneath the edge and you get to the pith, all you're doing is getting bitter. There's no lime flavor under there, it's just bitter. So I want just the green and I'm not in a rush. I want to do this right and slowly and carefully. And if you know people who don't like zest, I promise you it's probably because somebody was like, and they taste and were like, ugh, I don't like zest. It's very bitter. So you want to go very slow, very intentional. Just like with everything we do. The practice of pastry is not about rushing. It's not about the finished product. It's about the process and understanding the why of each step based on the ingredient needs, because the ingredients are going to ingredient. You can't tell them what to do. They're going to do what they do. Now here's my lime. Beautiful. I can now wrap this and use it tomorrow or put it into a deli cup and keep it. Now I want to tell you that these microplanes are very expensive and I've seen a lot of people bang them and push on them and this part can come out of the handle. So when you do this, you want to gently tap. I have a rubber spatula and then I'm going to get out of here as much as I can so we don't waste any of this precious zest. And zest will dry out right away, so this is also not something that you do in advance. All right? So I think I got most of it and it's in very good shape. And you want to be careful what kind of microplane you use because they're not all the same. Some are more like a cheese grater and that is not what you want. All right, so I'm going to take the whisk and I mean, is this the most beautiful? Look at the bright green, okay? So now here's the cool part. I'm going to take the meringue and put all of it in here. And you can do it in parts if you want, but I'm going to do the whole thing. And I'm going to start with the whisk. This is how I'm going to fold it because I don't want to deflate. I'm going to go very gently while turning the bowl. And once I get it kind of mixed in, then I will use the spatula to finish folding it, okay? And I'm going to use proper folding technique. And so in here we have things that are going to cook. The egg yolk is going to thicken up. It's already thickening up just with the acid in here. But the egg white is going to, all that moisture that's left in there is going to expand. And that's going to help set the structure. All right, so we don't want this to be lumpy. I could have maybe whisked it a little bit longer. I think I'm going to switch back. We don't want it to be lumpy. Those will just be egg white lumps in our beautiful pies. We don't want that. All right, good. I mean, we're almost to the point where we can get this in the oven. I'm going to clean up the edges. And again, like I said, this is way more than we need. It can go into other containers and bake it off, or I can adjust this for this pie pan. But my pan is really small. All right, so I have all my ingredients for the filling are done. I'm gonna put them over here. Got my oven set at 350. I'm going to get the crust out of the fridge. And I'm gonna show you the pie I made yesterday. Let me see how this, I can push this up the edge. So this wasn't really baked. It was just toasted for 5 minutes. And I'm sort of remedying the edge. It did shrink. And again, the one that I made today, I did not bake. It's almost like it's up to you. And Rose has a big explanation. But if you bake it, you are helping a few things, but you can also create other problems. Okay, I'm gonna push that up the edge. I just don't like how low it is. Okay. Push, push. So now I'm going to fill this up, not above, but it's not going to expand a ton. So I'm gonna decide how much is going to. Now, if I had more graham cracker crust, I could totally do more. And you aim right for the center. You don't need to move it around. Yeah, I have a lot left over. I think I might add just a little bit more. Okay, so this is a lot left over. All right, so this is going into the oven. You can look at how high it is right now and what it's gonna look like when I take it out, right? Put this in the oven, 350. And I'm going to get my powdered sugar because when it comes out of the oven, I am going to dust it with powdered sugar, put it back in for 5 minutes, and then, after I put this on the top, the meringue, and then it's going to get the broiler, and then it'll be done. So I'll show you what I have, actually. It's very exciting. Okay. I'm gonna get the pie out of the refrigerator. Wait till you see it. And it's gonna be sweaty, and I'm, a little upset about that, but it's super humid here. So this is my pie from yesterday. Okay, it looked really good this morning, and Dave and I had a piece for breakfast. This is what it looks like. See how it's all like the sugar is coming out of it? That's the humidity. Now, we need to get this off of here, so I'm going to use a hot towel for the bottom, and I'm going to cut a slice so we can see it. I could pop the whole thing out and put it onto a cake tray or a plate. I'm going to take hot water and get this nice and hot. Because you can see the moisture on there. See that? That was there this morning. A little caramelized moisture. If it were me, it only needs to be refrigerated for about 4 hours. So I would let the pie cool. I would refrigerate it and serve it as soon as I could. Of course, you can leave it overnight and it's fine. This is an issue with high humidity. And you're going to get less of this condensation using the Italian meringue than you will any other meringue. You could torch the meringue, put it on the last minute, or bake it. I like baking it because it kind of like a marshmallow, it puffs up a little bit, makes it a really nice color that isn't just the top. It's like kind of all the way through. Again, you want your heat to make sense. There's a reason we do things the way we do. So I am going to cut this, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to cut a big piece. Popped right out. There we go. So I'm going to touch it with my hands because I'm eating it. But there we go. All right. The crust is a little compressed, like I showed you. That's what I was trying to avoid. Do you see how the color of the crust here is different than the color and the texture of the bottom? That's probably because I pressed that too hard. So this is, it's not raw, but it's not baked as much as I want. And that's why I make the argument to pre-bake it. Okay, that's the back. Now that doesn't mean that it's not wonderful and sturdy. Because it is. Let me wash my sticky hands. As we pull that out of the oven, you're gonna see me very quickly I'm gonna put meringue on it. You see me do that, it's gonna go back in the oven, and then we're gonna watch it while it grills underneath the broiler, and then you're gonna see how beautiful it looks right out of the situation. Let me show you this. So even though this is not perfect, all right, so I get to eat now. Ooh, let me get something to drink. Really should get more water. Let me get some water. Ooh, it's so thirsty making. All right, so I have lime juice in here and like a kombucha from today. Ooh, that's a lot of lime. We have about 8.5 minutes. Let me show you this pie. So the reason, you know, and I said that this meringue, see how it has just a little bit of the brokenness, you know, and I'm a perfectionist. But when you put it broken into the filling, then you get a broken filling. So this is very delicious, it's very good, but it wasn't perfect. So what you get is very creamy filling, very interesting sort of caramelized meringue on the top, and then the bottom. The crust is meant to give you contrast texturally, color-wise, and flavor-wise, and that's why if you want to make different fillings and you want to use different cookies, you want to pair the seasonings in the cookie to the filling in the pie. And no matter what, when you put your fork through here, you see that? It went right through. That's very important. Have you ever put your fork into a tart shell or a graham cracker crust and it's gone flying across the room? That's because something's off. It's too much butter, it's compressed too much, baked too hard, but you don't want it that hard. You don't want it developed too much. It's very good. Anyway, I could eat the whole pie, basically. Now, you can do a simple meringue on the top. You can do one on the inside. You can do a meringue on the inside and then whipped cream on the top, and you can make it decorative. You can do whatever you want. There's a lot of ways you can do it. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to take out the pie, and then we are going to put the meringue on it, and then it's going back in the oven. So let's see if I can do this without burning myself. I'm gonna leave the oven where it is, and it did puff up. Okay, look at how it puffed up. It's very soft and tender, and I'm gonna put it on here and show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this Italian meringue, and I'm going to put it on top here. And I'm going to spread it around. Now, if I had a lot, I could pipe it on. I could make it look pretty, but it's not very much. Okay, that's all I have. Now, the trick to this is that we want the meringue to go to the edge because it needs to touch the graham cracker part or else it will separate. But I'm gonna get it close, and I'm not pushing. I'm sort of like nudging it like this and letting it fall in place and getting it to the edge, but I'm not putting it on the edge yet. It's very hot, so you have to be careful. And then I'm gonna take that's why I like these 4-inch offsets. So now I'm going to go around and make sure that it's touching both the filling and the crust. It needs to be touching both. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a decorative finish. But this can't just be floating. You have to almost connect the two so that when it starts to puff up in the oven, it doesn't separate. All right, so I can leave it this way. I can smooth it out or, you know, do things with it. But I'm just going to put this in the middle, tilt this, and run this around. Just give it a little bit of texture. This. It's going to make a bit of a mess, but that's okay. So I like to take the sifter so that it's even. I don't want it clumped. And I'm going to go around. I'm going to do a good amount. Now, if you've followed me for a while, you've seen my pavlovas and meringues where I add 10x, which is powdered sugar that's been milled 10 times. And it has 3 to 5% cornstarch. Remember, cornstarch absorbs moisture. It locks moisture in. So this is going to help caramelize the top with the sugar, but also absorb some of that moisture as it's in the oven. And I'm gonna go put this, I'll show it to you, but I'm gonna go put this in the oven for 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna put the broiler on. See? Look, it's jiggly. Isn't that great? Woo! So it shouldn't be hard as a rock because you need it to expand in the oven. 5 minutes, and I am relying on the timer. I already tested it, so I know. You can stand, by the oven and keep your eye on it, or you can just do this like I am. And I am gonna clean this up. Also had these cake stands forever and ever. All right, so we're keeping a clean kitchen. That is why I absolutely love this recipe. It will teach you so much, and that's one of the reasons that when I ask like which recipes are we going to be doing, it's not just so that we can make one thing. I want you to be able to make a lot of things and to be able to make connections. And some of the big ideas are emulsification, time, temperature, moisture, thinking like an ingredient. I think people are starting to understand where the erroneous information about brown butter has come from. It's not the way to get Maillard browning to give you really great flavor. You're really just getting it in the butter and you're skipping all the other things. So I think people are starting to understand that and know that no professional is gonna brown 20 pounds of butter. You're not gonna waste the time or the money. And you know that if you bake a cookie properly, you're going to get better Maillard, better keeping and better sturdy structure. A nice cookie. I've been getting a lot of questions about pudding mixes, cornstarch in a cookie, all these things. Here's what I just want everyone to think about: ingredients, and think about what is in one ingredient and what is in another. And if you look at flour, that's wheat. If you look at cornstarch, that's corn. So if you think you're going to remove some of the flour and add cornstarch and make it creamier, that's what people say, or something like that, cornstarch doesn't do that. It dries things out. So if you're adding cornstarch to make something creamier, you're missing the point. So here's where you guys have control. There's sugar everywhere. You have complete and utter control, because when you know what is inside, what lives inside of an ingredient, then you have power. All right, let's see what we've got going in here. I'm gonna turn the broiler on. I'm gonna turn it on high, I suppose. So let me show you what we have in here. All that did was give it a little bit of heat. There's my oven thermometer. It's getting a little brown. So at this point, I really don't want to ignore it. I'm gonna give it a few minutes and come back and check it. But really, for this, we're doing it to color. To color, that's it. If you want to take it a little ways and finish it with a torch, you may. But again, like I said, you want it to fluff up. You don't want it, it's been in there 5 minutes at 350. So you want it to fluff up like a marshmallow and then brown. If you just torch it, or if you just do the outside, this is going to be cooked and the inside's going to be raw. So that's what we're thinking about. I love the Flavor Bible, and I actually keep a spiral notebook that I do flavor work. And you pick your main flavor. Let's say I've got all those limes right here. See this? So now all of a sudden I'm like, what am I going to make? I mean, I could just think about it and make whatever I want, or I could get creative, like lime ginger with a chocolate crust, right? What you want to do is build dessert using color, flavor, and texture. So, oh shit. Oh, please don't have burned. Oh yeah, it is. Oh jeez. How fast it went. Last time I did it on low and I did it on high, I just burned it. It'll be extra caramelized. See, I smelled it, and that's good. That's why my smell still works, so that's great. Let me turn this off. All right, you know what the lesson is there? Yesterday, I did this on low on my broiler, and it took forever, so I went a little high. It's no big deal. It's flavor. It's not going to hurt anybody. But this needs to cool without a breeze on it. So I'm going to grab a cooling rack, and I'm just going to put it back here. So this needs to cool for about 2 hours, and then it needs to go into the refrigerator for about 4. And I will tell you, last night, I put it in an airtight container before I refrigerated it, and that really helped with keeping the humidity out. So then when I took it out this morning and Dave and I had a piece, I did not put it back in the container. So there's one thing you can do, which is airtight container. It needs to be 100% cool, and then refrigerate it for at least 4 hours so that it will slice nicely. And yeah, it's a little burnt. Oh well, I could, you know what? If I were having people over, in theory, I could peel the top off and then torch the top. You could, there are a lot of things you can do. But here's what we made tonight. Here's what we made tonight. I made this yesterday, and you can see how humid it is here. Look at the sugar pooling, okay? I could have built the meringue huge, so I could have made more, but that recipe doesn't. Key lime pie. And here it is, and it's been sitting out for a little while. Delish. Graham cracker crust. So when you come up with a flavor, what you want to do is have your primary flavor. It could be the season. You go to the farmer's market and they have tons of rhubarb, or it's peach season. You take that as your one primary flavor. Then you look at how do you want to use it. Are you going to use it as a jam? Are you going to saute them? Are you going to use them raw? Are you going to slice them thin? You're going to think of what color are they? Are you going to serve it warm or is it going to be cold? And then you want juxtaposition. Sweet with salty, a little bitterness. Salt will balance it out. Maybe umami. And then you need something crunchy, something creamy, and something in between. So that's why when you get plated desserts, you get all the components. You get a crumble, you get a really nice chantilly cream on the top, a firm lemon cream. You could take the graham cracker that I have, the squares, bake these in a silicone mold, plunk that on a plate and put a little whipped cream on top with a crumb. And so you're looking at color, you're looking at flavor, but you need opposites. And I would say you want you don't want to go crazy. You want to stick to 3 to 5. So I would do crunchy and sweet, but with a little cinnamony, but you can turn it any way you want. This is tart, but creamy. This is yellow, brown. This is white, but if you make it caramelized on the top. So what else could we do to our lemon meringue? Complementary colors. You could do fresh something on the side. So that's how you want to think. And that's why I'm always looking at ways of adding. I think it's hard to add crunch. And I think if you've got a really creamy dessert, then crunch is the way to go. That's why I keep crumbles in my freezer. They're great. The broiler's scary for me. I'm such an idiot. Look at it. Oh, it's going to be good though. It's still going to be good. But, mint, you know what? Unless the mint goes with something, so they call them functional garnishes. It has to be functional. So what you want to do with the garnish is sometimes if it's layered in, then that's a nice garnish. So if you're doing spearmint or whatever, fresh mint, and you have a mint ice cream, that's okay. But I like it to be functional. You could do glazed strawberries. That would look really pretty. I mean, you could just do fresh, quite frankly. But yeah, you could do a jam. And how pretty would a bright red, that's a great idea, okay? Wonderful. Bright red strawberries or raspberries on your key lime pie. Keep wanting to call it lemon because it is yellow. I'm going to keep eating in front of you guys. Yeah, we can't slice into this pie because it's going to need to sit in the fridge overnight, but tomorrow is fair game. But we have a pie here we're going to finish. This is the pie I made yesterday. This is a key lime pie with an Italian meringue, a filling, and a graham cracker crust that I made from scratch. But we also have over here that I accidentally left under a hot broiler. I should have done it's always better to go low and slow, and I don't know why I don't listen to my own. It's a little overdone. But the humidity is, you see how the meringue did not separate from the graham. That's because I made sure the two were touching. The meringue puffs up, and if it puffs up, it's gonna separate. I think Dave and I are just gonna eat that pie right out of the pan. We're gonna call it a day. Woo, this is a really hard one. I did a lot of work because I had to it was just a lot of components. And I think that this is a pie that seems really easy, but it's actually very technical. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for, the suggestion and for all of your involvement. I mean, I couldn't do this unless you guys were asking. I don't even think this looks appetizing, but we're gonna eat it. We're gonna eat it. Dave, you better hurry up or it's gonna be gone. Thanks for coming. I really, really, really appreciate it. I mean, I know you guys are gonna be here every Wednesday. Is very exciting. All right, I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna say goodbye because I'm gonna see you all on Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time for the PoP office hours, where you can talk about anything that you want to. I have no agenda, so it's all about you and what you want. And then I'll be back next Wednesday to lecture and demonstrate creme brulee, start to finish. all the tricks and tips that I've learned along the way, I want to share with you. Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm outside of New York, so if wherever you are in the world, like just think of New York time at noon. Saturdays and Wednesdays, it's a great work week for me. I really can recommend this recipe. I love Rose Levy Berenbaum. I think she's great, but I do recommend this key lime pie. It's very, very good. I think people would love it. Yes, I overdid the meringue. It's too dark. And this is still very warm. When it's 100% cool, I'm going to put it in a container in the refrigerator overnight. We're going to eat it for breakfast. But you know, meringues are difficult in the summertime. As soon as your humidity goes away, this will be a winner. All right, everybody. Pie is so good. I got to stop. I'm going to get a stomach ache. All right, you guys, happy baking. I will see you on Saturday. Take care. Thank you, Dave, for all you do and your moderating. I appreciate you. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.